We are going to be talking about color primarily today, and that's also one of the things that ties both these kind of very vast topics together. One is the Pantone color, and then there is the 80s style that we have in design. We in India especially are constantly surrounded by a free flow of colors. I think just a minute. Is it going to the next slide?
No, I don't know. Not yet, I think.
Okay. Okay. I think it's stopping because of this. Okay. Fine. So we in India in general are kind of, always surrounded by a free flow of design, of colors, through nature, through the clothes we wear, our culture, and the space where we live or work.
Mm-hmm.
And at different stages of our lives, we feel attracted or repelled by colors. This particular sheet is just to put things straight, what we designers often face when we talk about color, and what we imagine color as and what our client imagine colors as. It's a little joke that we're just starting off with. And for all you know, but color, yes, is something that is very, very important to us, and especially in our culture. I'm just going to kind of blow the screen up. Just a minute. Just tell me if it's too tiny, because I don't know if I'm on presentation mode.
Yeah, it is quite tiny. Yeah, there we go. That's much better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. Hopefully, yeah, that is good. Okay. Sorry for that. But yeah.
No worries.
So, and yes, just because we're from India and it's part of our culture, color is a very, very important factor in our lives. And Celery Campbell, once said, there is a reason why we don't see the world in black and white, and that's because color is such a strong influencer on how we feel and how it touches us, emotionally. That it becomes not just a color that you like, for the way it looks, but you like it because of the way it feels. And kind of felt very relaxing in a space, or very calming. And there's a very high chance it's because of the colors used in the space that's playing a part of why you like that space. Let's just give you a quick example. There are colors that make you feel just plain angry. There are colors that can alert you. That there are colors registered in our system which make us skip a heartbeat. There are colors that just soothe you. They're just very neutral. Colors can make you they can confuse you as well. And then there are shades that just have no emotion on you at all, which are just it's a blank kind of page. So I think it's also very safe to say that color is emotion, at the end of it. So it has a lot to do with how we feel today, and in general every single day. Studies have shown where color directly has plays kind of mind games. It has results on your heart rate as well. It has results on the adrenaline rush that you have, and so on and so forth. For us in the studio, when we get a new project, it takes us a great amount of time to try and convince the client that and to brainwash them about their preconceived. Typical example is when you ask a young daughter, the first thing she's going to say is, pink is my favorite color and I want my entire room to be pink. And then the boy will say, I want everything blue in my room. And then the grandmother is saying that, lal to mata ji ka color hai, let's just put red everywhere. And, so it takes, we kind of go through the step of counseling why and how colors should be used in a space. And of course, now that we are on color, let's speak about the Pantone colors, which is what we're here to talk about. Pantone basically is a color system, which is one of the, I wouldn't say the most important color matching system, but it's a very relevant color matching system, especially when you want to exchange colors and shades with each other. Basically, every color is coded. So it is no more just a red or just a green, but every intermediate shade is coded very crisply, very correctly. So when you're exchanging colors with each other, you have a precise shade with you. Why is the Pantone shade, important? Why is this uh, system so important in the world? Or why is there a color of the season that is picked every single year? It's because a lot of designers and design related fields have to constantly keep coming up with new collections every single year. And instead of choosing colors that are random, a predetermined Pantone color of the year helps these designers, be it textile, furniture, fashion, accessory, design something more theme based and more color based from season to season. And for them, it's also a great marketing way to say that they, have designed something that's on trend. Um, and with that, the introduction of the colors of the season, that is, this time there are two colors which were chosen as the color of the season, not just one. One is the ultimate gray, and the other one is an illuminating yellow color. But before these colors really became the Pantone color of the year, what were they to us? I mean, they were still colors that we knew, but before they became the most trending color, what did these mean to us? Yellow generally is associated with colors that are surprising, motivating, powerful. They're fresh. There's yellow is full of energy. It's bright, and that's what we associate it with. Um, Whereas the gray that was there was something that we saw something as neutral, powerful, solid. It had a little mystery in it, and a certain kind of stability in the color that it had. In the projects we do, we try to incorporate these shades to accentuate walls, to kind of bring certain elements out. It also neutralizes the palette for us in various ways. This is one of the projects that we had done called the Open House. Where the entire wall at the back was clad in cast concrete, which comes in a natural shade of gray. But it also forms a great backdrop for the staircase, which then becomes the hero of the space. Or another project which we did where uh, the entire living room was kind of enveloped in a lovely deep gray shade, and it just, as contrary to the two opinions where gray makes the space look smaller, it kind of made the space look a lot more cozier. Coming to the illuminating yellow, we can't deny that. So instead of using it just almost on anything that we find, we try to use these as certain quirky elements in the house, be it the bookshelf that we did, or the lovely the cute little center table that's there in the house. So we try to incorporate this color in kind of ways of surprise and quirkiness in our projects. And then moving to this shade, which is actually quite surprising. While I was researching on this topic, and I came across this, where it's a beautiful shade. Like I think military green or olive green is probably one of the most beautiful shades that we'll find, because it's so earthy, it's so neutral. And unfortunately, it happens to be that Pantone has named this as the ugliest color in the world. Which I think I found very shocking, and which almost goes to say why we shouldn't be following trends in a way. But that being said, now that we're on color, how can we skip out on a design trend that we see, or probably is making a comeback in certain way, and that is, of course, it's the return of the 80s. The Bauhaus, the avant-garde, the larger than life, colorful, bright, quirky pieces that are that are kind of making a comeback. It's all about statement making pieces that we do everywhere, and nothing that's just subtle, but it's out there to make to create a noise. Some lovely work that I've seen recently from friends in India. There's the first image is from Ali Baldiwala, and he's just recently incorporated this element. the center image is from her project. It's a residential project that she did, and this is how she brings about the 80s back in her work. And it's not just interiors and architecture, but one also sees this in product in subtle ways. And there's this lovely rug from Hatsu that talks about retro in a very kind of subtle way, so I think we're seeing that. We're seeing designers being influenced by that bold move in subtle ways, at least. How we bring it about in our work is we look at colors that excite you. We look at pieces that kind of speak for themselves. It's no more about everything being very muted, but it's about creating certain bold moves, be it in the form of the arch that you see, the form of the circle that you see, or the kind of colors that you use to just pop up a space makes a huge impact on the space that you're designing. Not just the walls, but also the bedding, from the cushions to the styling that we do. We try to incorporate just bold moves in different ways. And lastly, just ending it with something more motivational is do not follow trends. Be the trendsetter that everybody wants to follow. Yeah, that's a little bit about, that's a quick kind of roundup of what we think of the Pantone colors as well as the 80s.
So anyway, I just wanted to ask just a quick question about the boho chic style. I mean, how does one incorporate that into, or that sort of style? I've been hearing a lot about it even in product design. So how does one incorporate that into interiors and spaces?
So the boho chic.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of like the preconceived notion again of like boho chic has always been about this very vagabond kind of designs, and very kind of free flowing, careless, carefree design as well. And it had a lot to do with even I think boho chic also means things that are very personal to you. Things that you enjoy, things that comfort you as well. Boho chic has a lot to do with comfort, more than just the way it looks. So I think if that's how I interpret it, and I think that's Shonali's question as well on the chat, that she's asking, is the 80s design on your next mood board, project board? And yes, the way we, of course, if you had to bracket the work that we all do, you can always bracket it under some trend, but
Right.
how does every designer reinvent themselves? How does every designer keep innovating? Is by reinterpreting these trends in their own way, so yes, we try to so be it the boho chic or be it the 80s, like we try to pick up nuances from these, which is either very personalized designs or very kind of personal moments from a boho chic, or a very bold move from the 80s that we try to bring in, or the soft arches that we like to use sometimes in our design, which were quite dominant in the designs back then. Yes, so we definitely try to use elements and subtle nuances from all these trends into our design, but we kind of try to interpret it in our own way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to ask Esha to come and start her presentation and tell us a little bit about using, handicrafts and using our handcrafted artisanal pieces for interior design spaces.
So, hi everyone. I'm very excited to be here to exchange views on a trend that is so close to home, and one that our firm has begun exploring slowly but surely over the last couple of projects, reimagining Indian crafts in contemporary spaces. Now, before I get into the crosshairs of dissecting this trend, I would like to take a moment to weave a backdrop of the Indian arts and crafts scene, without which it wouldn't be possible to understand the emergence of this trend or the pressing requirement for its permanent inclusion. As we are all aware, handicrafts remain the hallmark of every civilization, a unique expression of a particular culture through craftsmanship and local materials, and India is no different. There are approximately 3,000 different art forms in India across various categories such as weaving, pottery, woodworks, sculpture works, metalworks. And all of this is in the hands of approximately 7 million artisans in the organized sector and 200 million in the unorganized sector. That's 20 crore people. That's 15% of our population. Now, India's tryst with handicrafts dates back to 5000 BC. So why are we only talking about this right now? Or why is it become a buzz in recent times? Unfortunately, but interestingly, the trend of reviving Indian handicrafts has not emerged purely from the love of crafts. It's emerged out of a crisis. The MD of Fab India said, and I quote, according to the UN, over the last 30 years, the number of artisans has decreased by 30%, indicating the need to reinvest in artisans to safeguard history, culture, and an important source of livelihood. So what's going on here? Why is this sector facing such a crisis? So one is the onset of industrialization. So traditional crafts have been marginalized by mass-produced goods that are cheaper, right? And they're cheaper due to mechanization. Secondly, the dismal condition of the market. And thirdly, and importantly, and this is where we all come in, the rural artisans are unable to gauge contemporary consumers' tastes and hence have failed to evolve their craft with changing times. So all this does not only threaten a loss of legacy, but it has also led to a complete degradation of the Indian artisans. They're the second largest source of employment in India after agriculture. Still 90% of them are landless. And while the average salary in the organized sector is between 5,000 and 18,500 rupees per month, an average family of 5 artisans generates an average income of only 2,000 rupees per month. Now, this awareness has propelled change. This awareness has propelled revival amongst both policymakers, and it's also got designers like us to start intervening. So how does this whole trend sit with interior design? Where do we stand in all of this? What can we do? What have we started doing? The first thing we can do is we can start intervening. See, designers have a higher probability to be more sensitive towards the true artistic value of a craft. And on the other hand, they're constantly in touch with contemporary markets. They understand evolving aesthetics and demands. So they can serve as a bridge between the traditional world and the modern world. They can become ambassadors. Second, we need to influence perception. By this, I mean that, people have a general notion that handicrafts are just handiwork mainly used for souvenirs or for export. We need to help clients understand the true artistic value of these. Third, we need to include crafts. We need to include products into our spaces. There are numerous lifestyle brands that sell handmade products which support the artisan community. We have so much to choose from, and as designers, we have the ability to educate and influence our clients to make conscious choices. And fourth, this is really what my presentation is all about. I'm going to quickly move into visuals, but it's about not only including products, but also reimagining handicrafts in spaces and furniture. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that we need to present crafts in a more innovative manner, such that the technique is kept intact, but the presentation is modern. What can this do? Well, this has the possibility of securing a wider appeal and also a more long-lasting one, right? Because you're talking to a modern audience. India is not stuck in the past. India is moving. It is evolving. And perhaps this could help us change this trend into a movement and then into a more permanent practice. A very good example of an industry who's done this so well is fashion. So if anyone is really interested in this, one must really research about this industry. Of course, these are a couple of names of institutions and architects and designers who've started walking this path. But I'm really here to talk about how we can reimagine handicrafts into spaces and furniture. Let me show you by giving you an example. Here on this screen, you can see a traditional pidha chair from Rajasthan and a traditional sankheda stool from Gujarat. Now, this is non-collaborative. This is where the artisan has worked on the product without any intervention from the designer, as opposed to this, right? So this is a chair constructed by and designed by Rushad Shroff, and stools designed by Ashish Shah. Now, this is a very strong example of how when an artisan and a designer collaborates, you can actually produce things that are more contemporary in format. Here is another such example of how a traditional rug and a traditional jhumar is reinterpreted by Jaipur Rugs and Clove Design Studio. I'm also going to now show you a few attempts that are made by our firm, by Studio Flamingo, along this line of thought. The first example is when we collaborated with Kamdar Abbas Bhai. So he has his workshop in Dharavi, in Kumbharwada. And we used about 6 of his installations for a holiday home in Goa. Now, our design concept for this project was to find a meeting place between the past and the present, the rich Goan architectural tradition presented with a modern twist. Now, in line with this, we saw that the empty walls as an opportunity to promote an Indian dying art form. So we chose terracotta, we chose pottery in the form of terracotta and presented it in an absolutely minimalistic manner, thereby harmoniously marrying the old with the new. Now, it's important to note, and it's important to include handicrafts in luxury projects if we want to change the perception, or in projects where we're going to have a larger footfall. Of course, we also consciously included a lot of handcrafted products and accessories to further our intent. The second example is a project that we are currently working on for a high-end jewelry brand. Here, we took inspiration from the jeweler's designs to create a pattern and then adopted the age-old craft of Rajasthani Karchobi embroidery to create these fabric panels. Why Rajasthani? Because most of these jewels are going to be made in Rajasthan. And we are developing these panels for a ceiling installation. This is the worm's eye view of the ceiling. This is a magnified version of what all the 3 prototypes look like. And this is how they'll be installed, for the waiting area of this jewelry store. This is a third example. And here we've used fiber crafts extensively. Now, the one thing to note about fiber crafts, especially cane, is how clients react to it, right? I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard people saying that, oh, but it's so old school, it reminds me of my grandmother's house. Now, as designers, we love cane, both from a sustainability angle and from a traditional crafts angle. So we found a solution to this. Our method was to adopt cane and marry it to very modern forms, versus using predictable colonial cane furniture, which is just too familiar to the eye. This Goan home was one such attempt. Again, here consciously, we've included various different kind of fibercraft products and accessories. Incidentally, the flooring over here is Bharat tiles, by the way. Now, this is another example, a very strong one, where we've been able to introduce cane in an absolutely urban setting, right? So this is a duplex apartment in Bombay, where we use cane again extensively in furniture. And the way we've been able to do this is by using very, very modern forms. The last example is the attempt to include about 25 Gondat pieces in this 25-room guest house that we modeled and designed for a factory in Nasik, which is incidentally our first architectural attempt. We were very keen to juxtapose the Spartan complex with a detailed art form. And we're using a 1400-year-old Gond tribal art form called Gondat, which I'm sure a lot of you might be familiar with. Again, in our ongoing endeavor to reimagine and ensure that it fits into a space like this, we're working closely with the architect to create artwork with unpredictable modern forms and a monochrome palette, but we're keeping the basic technique intact. So I'm going to end this presentation, but before I do that, what are the 2 things that I want you to take away? Why are we doing this, and why should we be doing this? Firstly, This reimagination process gives you an opportunity to discover a place between the known and the unknown, right? And for any creative person, experimenting is what your being craves for. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, uh, it allows you to serve as an ambassador. It gives you the opportunity to be a tiny agent for preserving our culture, a responsibility that every designer in our country may want to now start considering as a need of the hour. So before I go, I want to ask you a question. Is reimagining Indian crafts in contemporary spaces a trend? Should it be a movement? Or is it the pressing need of the hour? Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, that was really amazing, and so happy to see it. I mean, the only thing I can ask is right now is that what do you think is going to be the handmade art, the handmade craft that you think will gain the most popularity in 2021? Like, what's trending in the world of these art forms?
So I don't know what is going to gain in the future, but currently I can see a lot of rugs, a lot of handloom. I can see a lot of fiber crafts and a lot of interest in pottery. So
Wonderful.
I think these are the 4 places that we are already seeing a lot of presence and representation.
Really wonderful. So I don't think many people know this, but I think it was 2 years back. We also tried to work with a few handicrafts and develop a range of home products. And I mean, that kind of has taken a backseat, but I really should restart that process because I think the rewards, the process can be quite rewarding, seeing what you've accomplished. It's really amazing. Really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so many comments and compliments in the comment section. I'm sure you'll enjoy reading them.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to move on to the next presenter, who is our next panelist, who is Navya. Navya, would you like to start your presentation about furniture design and tell us a little bit about what inspires you?
Absolutely. Hey guys, you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can. Seems to be working fine.
Okay, great. So yes, I'm here to talk about all things furniture today. Furniture is a huge part of every single space, whether it's an outdoor space, whether it's an indoor space. Furniture is something that's inevitable. And while we have some of the largest design events around furniture that happen every year, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of them last year and this year. So the trends that I've sourced today are mostly through emerging designers. It's through a lot of established designers as well. So first thing that I want to dive into is sculptural forms. So sculptural forms are basically shapely forms and organic forms that have been carefully curated for different spaces. And so going on to the first slide. We saw a lot of modern contemporary structures, which were a lot of straight lines. It was boxy furniture. It was things which were, absolutely like very, very modern pieces. And for the first time, we saw an emergence of softer forms that kind of mingled in with it. So whether it's like, cutting off a sphere inside a cube, or it is adding a sphere. So we saw forms that had a little more life to it instead of just being something that looks absolutely factory manufactured. We also saw the emergence of sculptural forms that added a lot of drama without being loud. So whether it is, looking at so whether it is looking at forms that just emerge from the nature itself, things like pebbles, things which cannot be replicated as easily, things which look one in a million, that was the emergence of these sculptural forms. And again, what kind of finishes we saw on them were finishes that do, like natural finishes, for example, a stone finish or a limestone finish, which kind of add to the beauty of the form. And within sculptural forms itself, you also saw forms that you cannot really identify, forms that are absolutely organic in shape, but you cannot give them, a very specific birth. You can't understand where exactly they've come from, but all you know is that they've come from nature. Things that look like they've been eroded out of existing stones. It may seem like that wind and water together have actually created the forms that you're seeing in front of you. And I wouldn't call this a trend. I think this is just a movement that has come about in the past few months, and it's something called conscious consumerism. As consumers, for the longest time, we've been very dependent on just manufactured factory set templates that we now call furniture pieces. But I think it's important to understand that the consumer now looks beyond just easy to assemble pieces. We're looking at things that have longevity, whether it's a material that has longevity. We're looking at more solid wood furniture instead of an MDF that was doing rounds, I think 5-10 years back, because you understand that this material will last you longer. You can polish it over and over again, and it's going to look as new as when you bought it. And even when you look at like materials such as terrazzo, it's the longevity of the material. It's not something that is just around for about 4-5 years. It's going to last you 20 years. These pieces are something that can be passed on through generations, and that's exactly where the consciousness of the consumer comes in. And when you talk about this consciousness or even about sustainable practices, it's not just about the material. Sometimes you look at forms that can be used many ways. Like baskets, how interestingly they can be used, whether you make a poof out of a basket, or you have them as drawers or storage units. You can have them as lanterns or light fixtures. So I think just how one single form can be used so many ways itself is it's a conscious effort of having one form and just replicating it with many different functions. And even if you look at this very famous chair, it's something that's still in trend. It's something that never fades out, simply because it has an appeal that lasts over generations. This specific chair, I don't know about you all, I had these kind of chairs for teachers in schools, and now you see the same chair, which is painted in a bright Pepsi blue color, and it might be upholstered, it might have a wicker weave. So you have the same form that has so many facets to it. And of course, when you talk about conscious consumerism, sustainability plays a huge part. So it's about the materials, or even the process of actually making any single thing. So the first image that you see, those are kind of live mushroom fungi, which have been, built in this form as a lampshade. And even if you look at like birch, for example, today, one reason why it's so popular is because you simply don't need to do taping on the side, or you don't need to finish the sides, because the sides itself look so beautiful. So all that together comes down to conscious consumerism. I think the third trend that I noticed, which I think is something to do a lot with Indian designers finding a voice for themselves, is a grounded color palette. I think for a very long time we have been focusing on colors that do rounds across the world, but may or may not actually fit in the Indian context. Our temperatures differ, our terrain differs. We have a lot more dust. Probably we cannot have pristine white places. And just understanding what works for our culture is important. And therefore you'll see a huge new trend of warm colors that add depth to spaces without being too dark or without being too bright. So I think this terracotta color is something that's doing rounds nowadays. Again, when you look at the kind of greens that you have, Nishita also pointed out the ugly color, which is a beautiful, beautiful olive green or a military green. Again, these colors you can see in Nishita's work itself. You can see it in Ravi Vazrani's work. You can see it in Mangesh's work. There's so many people doing such. Viram's work. You see all these plethora of colors in so many new designers' work. simply because these colors complement our surroundings, they complement the kind of textiles we use. A lot of them seem to be borrowed from natural dyes that we have, like in indigo, and they're all offsets of things which are found within India. The next is personal expression, which is probably the most important trend. And I think this is a trend that should always remain, because it's important to know that everyone has their own style, and no furniture piece should be dictated purely by what's in trend. There has to be personality to that trend. So whether it's a quirky piece, and whether it's bright, what kind of functionality it adds, all those things come together to build the personal expression. And personal expression can also be things like, where you're born. If, in India, we have the whole charpai as a furniture piece, and just interesting weaves of that furniture piece are available today. And why not have that in your home, even if you're not living in India, just because it has a memory attached to it. Similarly, if you have like leftovers of stones that have been used in your house flooring, why not build a furniture piece with it? So I think more and more people want something that is unique to themselves, instead of just having something which is, again, just easily available and something that has no personal connection or thought. And something as small as like dustbins today, I think this is the first time I'm getting a dustbin custom design for a client, simply because we are all sitting at home and we always used to go buy the stainless steel ones. And this time I was like, okay, you know what, I want something different for my house which fits into my house. And similarly, the image on the left, when you look at pieces which functionally work for you, you might not have like an elaborate coffee table tomorrow, but when you are inviting more people, you would want to spread it out and have it, cater to a lot more people. So I think that's that. The only takeaway I want all of you to have is keep it simple, but make sure that it's significant. So yes.
Wow, that was wonderful and really, really interesting, especially the mushroom lights, I think were my favorite. I've been hearing a lot about this material. Is it easily available? Like how do you work with it?
No, so it's not a material that's available off the shelves. It's something that's grown in labs, and then you have like a pharma on which they actually grow that. So it grows into being that shape. It's not something that's molded into that shape. Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. Like, have you heard of this company called Made from Malai, which basically makes sheets of leather from coconut water, which I thought was the most fascinating thing. And it's like vegan leather, which looks, feels, and everything is like leather, but it's just vegan, and no animals were harmed. It's really beautiful. So that was really wonderful. Thank you so much, Navya. I guess, do any of the panelists have any questions for Navya, or anything that you'd like to contribute at this stage, or want to say? You can do that right now. If not, then I'll move on to the last panelist of our discussion, Shonali Mahajan, who's going to be talking about eco-friendly and sustainable interior design. So I think this is something that's really close to my heart as well, and let's see what she has to offer us.
Hi guys, thanks Firdaus for having us here, and I hope everyone's well and safe. All my co-panelists' presentations were amazing, and I think each one touched upon different aspects of sustainable design, and different aspects of ways we can bring it into interiors. I think Navya put it so well by saying that keep it simple but keep it significant. She touched upon some materials as well, and not to take away from the fact that we should be using indigenous craftsmanship that, like Esha mentioned, we should be using products and designs like Nishita and Navya both making, that are available and designed by Indians for India, available in India, instead of going to Italy and kind of bringing things in. So I think just with what we've been talking about here is where I would like to stop talking and share a video about a school in Bali called Ibuku. I mean, actually it's a design practice. And I was supposed to go there and study how to build with bamboo last year, but then there was COVID. And it kept getting postponed indefinitely and I couldn't go. So I'm still sitting here, but I keep stalking them like a crazy person. So I'm just going to share my screen and a little video about what they do. Give me a sec. Can you guys?
Green Village is a community of private homes. Each of them is completely unique and designed for the people who live in them on the edge of a river valley in Bali. I'm Alora Hardy and I'm leading a team of designers and builders creating bamboo homes. I think it's mostly inspired by nature, just natural forms. Thinking about what a house would look like if you hadn't seen a conventional house before. If houses never became square, what would they be? It's all kind of out of the box. It doesn't really fit in any existing culture. My influences are the material, the people, the craftsmen, the clients, the landscape, and a feeling of like pursuing this feeling of what do you want to feel like when you feel good in space? What do you want around you when you feel good?
So that's just a small presentation to sum up what sustainable design, what the importance of it is. I'm going to share a presentation that we made. Give me a sec. Just to kind of encapsulate what the process is, what the materials are, and a little bit about how we bring it into our design. So, I mean, I think given the times that we are in, everywhere we're going, the whole world is kind of in lockdown. And why? If you break it down, why did this happen? Essentially, overfishing, industrial fishing, overharvesting, deforestation. So where have all the animals gone? We've overfished the seas, so fishermen are no longer able to find their local daily sustenance. So they're going into forests. They're eating bush meat, which is not essentially not essentially what we should be eating. And that's leading to over hunting. That's leading to bats coming out of their habitats, and that's leading to this combination of humans, animal waste, animals, which is what's led us to this pandemic that we're facing today. So I think the importance of sustainability and designing sustainability is to ensure that there are resources available for the rest of our lives and future generations. So before starting any project, I think it's good to take a step back and assess the life cycle of the products and the materials that you are incorporating into your design. While trends are important and what's going on, it needs to be relevant to today. You also need to understand where is your mood board, where is each material coming from? For example, we had a conversation with Firdaus before this panel discussion started, that what is the life cycle of his product? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from Italy? Is it coming from Sri Lanka? Where is it's actually made very close by? It's reusing natural resources. It's reusing Italian chips or stone chips or even glass now, cementing it and being transported locally. So I think while it's very difficult for every product to tick off every requirement of the sustainable life process, if you can tick off at least 4 of them, I think we're in a better place than not. So I think what's important is you have to figure out where it's coming from, how it's processed, how is it being manufactured, how is it being distributed, how far is it going, how is it being used, and what happens to it at the end of its life cycle. If you can manage to kind of just sit back and take a look at what you're doing and what you're putting into it, it's like your salad and your food that you're eating, then you kind of have a more holistic sort of approach. Why is it important? Look how this picture makes you feel. It makes me feel at peace. It makes me feel spiritual. It makes me feel kind of, I can take a fresher breath. And I think that's why, having sustainable design is important, so that you can feel better, you can breathe better, And also the environment and the people around you are not at a disadvantage of how you are building and how you are living and how you're designing. Not to mention, of course, climate change, the fact that we need to be careful of how we're, interacting with animals. So everything that you design needs to be a little bit more sensitive, not just to you, but to people around you. Like I mentioned earlier, what are the different things you should keep in mind while you're designing a project? The product lifecycle is one. Energy efficiency. So a lot of people, I mean, we're designing homes in Bombay, we're designing homes in rural areas and urban areas. I think energy in general is a very, very, very commoditized resource, and I think it needs to be preserved also. So what can you do? You could do things like use natural ventilation, of course, but even technology like automation systems can help you conserve and reduce and manage. So it's like budgeting. You see how much you're using up, you understand where, and then you try and use these systems to use it more efficiently. And of course, reduce waste. Now, reducing waste, there are multiple ways you can do that. By using products that are recycled, of course, upcycling products, but also not following trends to the T. It's not like fashion that you buy and you throw. Use things that kind of are more classic, that would work with you and would stay with you and would resonate with you and more relevant to you for a longer period of time, so that you're not going to consistently keep changing. It's not like going to Zara and buying a t-shirt and then coming back and 3 months later buying something else. And I think essentially that's what we need to keep in mind, that whatever is here today should be staying for tomorrow. How do you bring this back home? How can you do your bit? It's very difficult when you have clients who want something really beautiful, when the craftsmen and your contractors don't understand how to kind of build this for you. But there are simpler ways which we kind of try to incorporate. Like I mentioned, when it comes to ventilation, when we have control of the architecture, we make sure that there's enough cross ventilation. When there's systems like automation, we include them so that we know where there's someone's leaving the AC on, it'll go off thanks to the automation systems at the correct time. Use lots of plants, indoors, outdoors. It helps reduce stress. It makes your air quality better. There are lots of plants and lots of information available, like even your areca palms, which is so easy to get, is really good to improve indoor air quality. When you're in environments where it's too hot or too cold, using a lot of furnishings really helps, like heavy shears or heavy curtains, carpets, because that kind of traps the air. It reduces the glare. It reduces the need to compensate it with air conditioning. So again, the idea is always to try and reduce compensation of HVAC systems. Try not to rely on heating to compensate where you are. Try and rely on natural sort of techniques and dress like curtains and carpets, because even carpets absorb a lot of sound and insulation, which avoids that sort of pollution. And embrace technology. I mean, LED, everybody's using LED now, of course. That's kind of like just very basic sort of entry-level design. But even when, like I mentioned, automation systems is something that you can incorporate in your design too. And it's not just about curtains and lights. It goes much deeper. So talk to your providers and they will help you kind of understand how to make it more efficient. This is a project that we had done in Kunur, and it's cold. It gets very cold, and there was not enough light coming from just the doors. So what we did was we opened up the roof and put in a massive skylight so that space during the winter doesn't require a lot of heating. So I think that really helped, just a natural sort of light, and it just brings in so much space, and that you enter the space and you're just like, wow, because you just have this immense amount of light coming in, and the ceilings and the heights and the volumes. And also what we did was, because it also can get really hot, we had to, of course, use laminated glass and all of that. But the colors that we used on the walls were softer and they were lighter. So again, using the softer, lighter colors kind of compensates and makes the space feel cooler. And again, in the next picture here, and this is something I think a lot of developers, especially, I think Esha's also worked with Isprava, we've all worked with them here. A good thing that they do, and I think I support and would like to encourage other designers to do, is reusing old doors, windows, furniture, changing the polish, upcycling them. There's a lot you can, and it adds so much character because then you know it's unique. It's unique to that house, to those products, to those doors and windows, and you can't replicate it. So again, touching upon what Esha said, that when a craftsman makes something, it's like his unique signature. And when you're supporting him, you're supporting his community. That's a super sustainable approach. He's nearby, he's local, he understands what he's making for you versus all these manufactured items. And then of course, lastly, less is more. Don't overclutter the space. Firdaus, your tiles are there. And try to keep it simple. What we do sometimes also is when there's a lot of, the volumes are high, we tend to paint the ceiling a slightly darker color, so it comes down, so it just automatically feels cooler. So that kind of keeps the requirement for overheating sort of less. What are the materials you can use that bring them home for architecture and interiors? Econil, that's a sustainable material being made of fishing nets and plastic. Hemp, cellulose, any plant-based fibers. So many brands like Humming House, Rug Republic, they're all using recycled plastic, recycled fabric. Mishkat Co is using sari silk. Use those, reuse them. And it again, like I said, it has a unique story. So versus just something that can be duplicated easily. Rammed earth, this is a construction method that can be used locally. And then making terrazzo out of recycled plastic. So hopefully we'll see something new soon. Solar panels, rainwater harvesting, these are all systems that if you're building a space from scratch, you can incorporate. Bamboo, precast cement panels, keep it anything that's natural, that's renewable, that can be made again, not by a very intensive manufacturing process, and that's non-toxic. Now, low VOC paints that are non-toxic, that don't keep over years sort of release toxins, is available, quite abundantly. So use those. I guess the best preparation for better tomorrow is start today, and I hope that, it's still something that we strive for in all our projects, and I hope we can do much more. But yeah, thank you.
Really wonderful to see this presentation, Shonali. And my only question is that, from the point of view of somebody who's probably so used to the kind of materials that you get normally, how does one really source, or which are the easiest materials to use which are like eco-friendly? Like, is it bamboo, or you said hemp? Where does one get these materials from? Is there like one-stop shop, or how do you find suppliers?
So the ideal way of, for example, bamboo is if you're in a position to be able to grow it, or if you have any access to bamboo farms that you can bring it from. Even hemp, cellulose, all these are grown and available, and for you just need to contact a supplier or use products that use these. If you're looking to incorporate them, like for rug or for textiles, like you mentioned, Malai, they make vegan leather. So the ideal way would be to contact these guys, procure it, and then use them in certain ways, or collaborate with them to kind of make it for your purpose.
Super. We were also talking earlier about how terrazzo can be quite sustainable if used properly. And yeah, it is a product that has recycled glass, recycled chips. It's made on site, so there's no wastage. And of course, it lasts a very long time. Like I would definitely like to explore more materials which could go into terrazzo. So if anybody has any ideas, do go ahead and tell us. And I'd be happy to hear. And now we'll be coming to the last part, which is my presentation. And basically, my presentation is more pictorial. So to all the audience members, I just want to say that you could probably start thinking of questions and put them down in the question part of the in the question and answer segment of your screens, so that once my part of the presentation is over, we can start with the questions as well. I'll start posing the questions to all the panelists. Yep. So anyway, so my presentation is basically about speckled terrazzo, and that's basically a trend that we've been seeing. I mean, terrazzo has become a huge trend since the last couple of years. And since we've been part of it and we've had to do a lot of this kind of work, I thought I'll just sort of illustrate on what seems to be trending right now in the world of terrazzo. Sorry, 1 second. I have to figure out how do I share. Okay, right. Cool. All right. So is that visible? Is my screen visible? I hope that it's come to full screen right now, and let me know. Yes, cool. Okay, great. So basically, speckled terrazzo differs from the normal terrazzo that everyone seems to be using in the past few years. In that, there's a lot of huge chips, high contrast. In the previous years, we saw a lot of people wanted things very muted, very subtle pastel colors. Oh, we don't want to see the chips. It has to look seamless, and speckled terrazzo seems to be going in this opposite direction, where basically there is giant chunks of chips which are there and really make a statement about the space and the flooring. Like basically, it's like you just cannot ignore the flooring, and loudly proclaims that, yes, I have a terrazzo floor in my house, and suck it up if you don't like it. As opposed to the earlier versions of terrazzo which people demanded, where it was just very plain and almost insipid, I would say. So moving forward, these are some of the projects that we did where we basically used these larger chips. This was done for Kunal Sevlekar, where we used semi-precious stones, large chunks of semi-precious stones. In our own showroom as well, we use these giant pieces of various kinds of stones embedded into the floor. These are some of the samples that we've been creating for clients as well in tile form, obviously, but these are going to be translated into the floors as well. And like for instance, it really looks stunning in some applications, like for instance, countertops, walls. These kind of spaces look beautiful with this kind of large chips, because it really adds that pop of design in an unexpected way. Apart from our terrazzo and the cement-based materials, I see a lot of people are using them in different ways also. Like terrazzo seems to be making a big comeback in terms of wallpaper, for instance. If you see, people have been printing terrazzo patterns onto wallpaper and using them for walls. These are some of the examples, and then you have like terrazzo carpets, terrazzo splotchy carpets, which I think also really cool. They've been used in furniture. So one of the things that's happened this year is also we've been doing a lot of furniture design and using terrazzo. I think Navya mentioned that terrazzo could become a big part of furniture design, and it has actually. We've been doing a lot of items in terrazzo for right from corporate office counters to other things. Like WeWork has used a lot of our terrazzo for their furniture. These are just some of the things that that give you an idea of what's happening. And as you can see, this sort of terrazzo really makes a statement about the fact that you're not trying to hide the material, or celebrating material and celebrating the fact that it's a combination of stone and cement. It's even been used in things like plates, cutlery, crockery, and I'm really so happy to see that. I mean, it's really making such a great comeback. And I mean, just going through pillowcases and planters and wrapping paper, and it's like it seems to have become a really huge trend. So I just wanted to bring it, talk about it a little bit.